So we got to talk about the PETA list.
Yeah.
I know you've seen it.
I've seen it, and people have brought it to my attention that, we apparently in the eye of the storm here with talking about bring home the bacon. You're not supposed to say that anymore.
Yeah. We talked a few episodes ago about conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And I'd almost like to think that PETA is a conspiracy, that it's a joke. There's somebody like really, really wealthy that just sets us up as a prank. Because how...
Yeah.
Really, are you going to convince anybody by this just buffoonish, self-righteous, over-the-top...
Somebody's making a lot of money, I think. I think you're right. I think somebody at the top, because when I first saw the PETA list, I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
Like, it showed up on my Instagram.
Who would be so tone-deaf and dense?
So, all right, check this out. So, like, I'm going to read some of these.
Yeah.
And so some of these are like... It says it's harmful to say kill two birds with one stone. Instead, helpful way to say it would be feed two birds with one scone.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? I just thought of something. I got them on a technicality.
Yeah.
Because my friend is vegan, and she posts, Katie, I love you. She posts 35 things a day about animals. Mm-hmm. And I saw something that said you're not supposed to feed them bread.
Right.
Because the bread expands in their stomach and it doesn't let them get the proper things they need, like worms and other things. So feeding birds a scone, harmful to birds.
Yeah. And then you have to hit them with a rock. And it's the vegan's fault. So thank you, PETA.
No, seriously, right. Or you have to take an oar to them and quote unquote herd them.
Yeah, you herd them.
So
with consistent swings.
So by the way, that's just a hot take, but I mean, I don't think you're supposed to feed birds scones. So 0 for 1.
So unfortunately, I think what PETA does, and I think I've fallen for it. It's a good advertising, because for some reason we're talking about these stupid morons, but they did it because they put something so obnoxious out there that it's drawn attention to them, and we've had a chance to point out and discuss.
We should interview someone from PETA.
No?
Okay. Because I'm wondering, would they say, look, we go over the top here with this stuff just to get awareness. We don't really think it's bad to say, let the cat out of the bag, for example. You should say, spill the beans. Well, guess what? Beans are alive. Have you never... Jumping beans?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think they should just be ignored, and perhaps even...
Well, then...
We have to delete everything.
Yeah, we have to delete everything we just said.
So
it's... Can I just read a couple of these? Because
please.
It's harmful to say, be the guinea pig. It's helpful to say, be the test tube. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? Be the test tube? This is real. This is on PETA.org. This is not...
It's an elaborate prank.
And I really don't think our discussion of PETA is going to make or break PETA. You're not supposed to say hold your horses. You say hold the phone. What's wrong with holding horses?
Yeah, so you're not riding the horse. Well, horses shouldn't be used as transportation. They should be allowed to be free.
So let's get to... So we did a podcast about bring home the bacon. Instead, do you know what we're supposed to do instead?
What?
Bring home the bagels.
Oh, at least they didn't mention kale. Is there any references to kale in this?
I don't think so. But I like that beat a dead horse should be feed a fed horse.
I honestly hope that this is an elaborate prank with someone who's fabulously wealthy, probably has their vagina steamed.
I guarantee it. All right. We don't have to... This is actually really funny, though. I'm sorry. But, yeah. Feed a fed... Wait. Yeah. Be the test tube is the worst one. Nothing wrong with holding horses. You don't want to open a can of worms. Instead, you open Pandora's box. All right. I want to show you something here. Mm-hmm. The picture of bring home the bacon, changing into bring home the bagels. Mm-hmm. That's a man's hand on there. Why has it got to be a man?
It's sexist.
It is sexist. Women can bring home the money as well. So, first of all, PETA.
Yeah, shame on you for being so sexist.
Shame on you. All right. So, I did like the fact that we got some mentions and some I think we got some extra downloads on that one too because people wanted to know about this. Bring home the bacon. So if you haven't listened to that, listen to it. You'll hear Steve hate on kale, which is like his favorite thing to do. Steve hates a lot of things. So
I'm going to say hate's a strong word.
Oh, okay. So you don't hate kale.
Oh, I hate kale.
Okay.
But it's just saying hate's a strong word.
I know. Steve's not full of hate. All right, so I guess we should talk about idioms.
Yeah.
Are we going to jump into that?
Let's go for it.
All right, so this first one was another listener request. It's our boy Steve. Once again, he had a bunch of good ones. So this one was dead as a doornail. Have you heard this one?
Dead as a doornail. I have heard this one. I've used it a lot. For some reason, I want to say I had looked this up a couple years ago because I thought, I hear that and I think about what a door looks like nowadays. And there's some screws that keep the hinges in, and there's, some sort of nail thing in the hinge to attach it to the door. But I don't think that's a doornail. Maybe that's what a doornail is. Doesn't seem to do much except get dropped in a slot. But I feel like that there's something that can't be it. There's got to be something more complicated. Door technology is pretty gentle.
Yeah, it's weird that. Well, and the other thing is, dead as a doornail. For some reason, in my head, I wasn't sure if it was dead as a doornail or dead as a doorknob. Have you ever heard that?
I haven't heard that.
So I looked that up, and apparently a lot of people, younger people too, have messed that up and say dead as a doorknob to the point where there's been talk of this being one that's kind of moves from one to the other just because if you don't know the reason for it, then there's nothing sort of tethering you to saying doornail. Doorknob sounds similar.
Everyone knows what a doorknob is. I don't know what a doornail is. So is a doornail the thing that you drop in between the hinges?
No, so it's different. So the thing you're talking about, I don't know what it's called, but I know what you drop that thing through and it swivels on that. But no, a doornail. So this saying has been around for a long time, all the way back to the 1500s. Shakespeare used it in King Henry VI, talking about somebody being dead as a doornail. And back then, they did not have the pieces that you're talking about for a door. So if you think about an old school door, okay, picture these, big, vertical planks that are, like maybe 2x4s, maybe even wider, that are lined up together to make a door. And then in order to keep them together, they would take a very long, big old nail with a kind of flat head to it, and they'd nail it horizontally through all of the wood slats or the wood planks. And then once it got all the way through all of the pieces of wood, they'd take the hammer and then they'd smash the head of the nail to flatten it out.
Okay.
And then there you had it. So they do that 2 or 3 times and you got a door.
Okay. So once you've done that, that nail's not coming out.
Yeah, right. So that's the reason that it's really used is once it's done, it's done. You're not going to, so if you mess, now I'm going to tell you right now, it took a lot of energy for me to try to explain that because I don't know how to make things or build things.
Yeah.
I can't swing a hammer. I have done a little bit of it and I have definitely hammered my fingers before.
Right. Have you and I ever tried to build anything together?
Jeez.
I know we've moved some stuff.
Yeah, the first thing that came to my head was moving things.
You were very kind and still remain my friend afterwards when you helped me move an armoire that got stuck in a stairwell that we had to call your dad.
Yeah, we called in reinforcements.
We did. That I've had to besmirch more members of your family with my terrible furniture moving.
That was the craziest. But here's the thing, though. That was just one piece of furniture.
Yeah.
I've been on way worse, like situations where I had to move people's stuff.
Right.
I had a situation where, and by the way, I do have a story about you and a door, which I just thought about. But I had a situation where I was right out of college. I was at my first job. And a young lady I worked with asked me if I could help her move one weekend. She asked everybody at work. And I'm thinking, okay. Yeah. The thing was, like, nobody ever wants to ever help anyone. Like, if you asked me, can you help me move tomorrow? I wouldn't want to. I'd do it because you're my friend.
Yeah,
but,
I wouldn't do it.
Okay, well, fair enough. So, but with her, I'm thinking, but I'm going, I'm new to this job. I kind of want to put my best foot forward.
Right.
And I'm thinking it'll be a bunch of people from work will show up. No kidding. I show up. It's her.
Yeah.
Her dad. Her mom. And this guy.
Oh, my gosh.
And her mom was making snacks. So it was the three of us.
Were you betrothed at this point?
Well, that was the weird part about it, right? Because we were about the same age. And I remember her dad talking to me and all this stuff. And I'm going, I don't even really know your daughter. But I'm just being a good guy.
That's kind of I think now as an older person looking back, you realize that's kind of an intimate thing to help somebody move. Like that and taking somebody to the airport, that's pretty close to getting a nipple involved. I mean, that's second base material.
Did you say nipple or did I think you heard nipple?
Yeah,
okay.
I did.
Yeah, so it felt that way.
Yeah.
I felt like he bought me a Gatorade.
Yeah.
And that was my payment. And I thought I should have his daughter's hand in marriage at that point. I don't know if this will be funny. I'm just going to bring it up.
Yeah.
Which is a couple years ago, Steve and I going down to Virginia Beach to see some of our good friends. And I think on the way there, Steve says, oh, we need to stop by my dad's real quick. We're going to help him move. Like one thing.
Yeah.
I'm going, oh, yeah, no problem, man. We got all day.
Oh, no. I had blocked this out.
Should I not even go there? Or can I
No, this is go for it. But I'd totally forgotten that I had done that.
This episode has a lot of random stories because there's not much to this. So
may I take it from here? This was when
I would prefer if you want to take it from here.
Okay,
yes.
So this was when. Now I did give you a heads up that we were going to help them.
Okay,
so
that's why I said it might have been embellishment.
Okay,
it wasn't on the way there.
But what is not an embellishment was part of my help was I somehow broke a key off in a lock in my parents' house that required them to get a locksmith to remove it. And the fury of my father, rightfully. But he didn't kill me. And frankly, if he did, I think that everyone involved would have understood.
Well, now that I think of it, you didn't purposefully do it.
Oh, yeah.
It's not your fault.
No, but I do have that bad mojo that sometimes pops it up.
True. But now that I think about it, your dad had just as hard a time masking his irritation. Now I see where it comes from with you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll have to give Steve a heads up on the podcast. Hey, I'm just going to bring this up, because the look on his face sometimes when I say something, and that is exactly what your dad did.
Yeah.
He was like, it's okay. But you could tell he was like,
if no one was around and I had a hammer, my corpse would be in that backyard probably. And again, deservedly so. It's one of those things I think if the police showed up and they heard the situation, they would have, uncuffed him.
Then the guy came out. That guy, the locksmith, was an interesting cat. And I don't know if there's enough to tell the story. I just remember that we were there for quite a while. He was an interesting dude. So,
anyway.
I mean, as a locksmith, by the way, think about the stories you would have as a locksmith, and you should have. I mean, people are calling you out at really weird times.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're getting yourself into, what you're opening. But anyway, so dead as a doornail, dead as a doorknob. I think Steve felt that way, but it wasn't that bad. And we still got to our destination and had a good time. We got a good story out of it.
And the most important thing to take away from this idiom is I am the last person in the world you want to have help you move.
So this saying was used in A Christmas Carol, where Dickens talks about old Marley and says he was dead as a doornail.
Okay.
And yada yada. So it's anything that Dickens said. It's like Shakespeare said it or Dickens said it. It's going to get used for a while. There's another, we talked about using it, because again, we talked about what a doornail is, so that's great, because to me, that's the biggest takeaway, because I never knew what in the world a doornail was.
Yeah.
And I would wonder, but never quite enough to Google it. So you don't have to
I've
Google
learned
it.
something.
But the other part is, the nail itself, you'd have to hit on the head of the nail multiple times. So that was another theory about why the dead part came in. You say, well, I'm hitting it on the head with a hammer a bunch of times.
Right.
But most people think, no, it's just once it had been used, it's not usable anymore. It's a doornail once it's pulled out. Because back then, using making nails, having good nails, it's not like you could go to the Home Depot and get 100 pack of them.
Right.
They were very expensive goods, durable goods. I mean, you could reuse nails,
Mm-hmm.
but not a doornail
Right.
because that was going to be dead once you bent it up. So,
And I like the Christmas Carol mention too, because that gives us an idea of how it would make sense of how that got into the vernacular.
Yep.
And gives me a chance to talk about the Muppets. If you get a
Oh.
chance, one of the best versions I think of Christmas Carol is the Muppets Christmas Carol, which is tremendous. It has Michael Caine.
okay. You know what? That's great. I should watch that with the kids because there are a lot of movies that I never watched.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've told you before, I've never seen any Muppets movies. I just watched Elf for the first time, like 2 weeks ago with the kids. And so I'll put that on the list for sure. Let's quit beating around the bush and get to the next idiom, which is beat around the bush. And this was another request from Allison. So,
Okay. So I guess just to start out with, to say thank you to Steve and Allison. And I think we actually like these ones. The last ones seem to have a negative tone to it. So I think we use these ones. This is one I seem to use a lot. I think a lot of people use it a lot. It's used to say, get to the point. Stop. Gosh, I almost want to use it in the description. We use it that
well,
much.
cut to the chase.
Yeah, cut to the chase. Just get to the point. So I would think that this is, I'm thinking of like pheasant hunting or something. Like you're trying to get something that's in a bush. Instead of just kind of beating around and trying to flush it out, just get right to the point. Stop, smacking around and kind of trying to rattle things. Get in there, get to it.
Yep. So this one's been around since 1440. It was in a medieval poem. And we all know what beat around the bush means. Yes, it does have to do with beating, the bush to get the birds to fly out or whatever. But this is where I always go, why? There are many things you could say, and there's a little nuance to this one that was fun because I can envision it, right? So if you think about hunters, there's different kinds of hunters. There's hunters who are living off the land and they've got to get a pheasant. Then there are hunters who are doing it for sport. And beat around the bush is more the latter. So it's like you've hired some guys to help you with hunting.
Okay.
And part of their job was to beat the bush to kind of get the animals going. But what cracks me up is you can picture some rich guy with his like Panama Jack hat yelling, "Stop beating around the bush," because you don't know what's going to come out of that bush.
Right.
So you're getting paid, 1 pence an hour or whatever. And they expect you to bite the bush and a freaking boar pops out and bites your face off.
Right.
So I'm thinking about these guys that are like not really beating the bush. So they've got a big stick and they're kind of literally.
They're rightfully being tentative in what they're doing because they're not on a horse in a pair of silky pants.
Exactly. So the guy from Ace Ventura 2 is like, "Quit beating around the bush." And they're like, tapping around the sides. It reminds me of a story about myself. So as you know, Steve, I moved around a lot as a child. My dad was in the Air Force, and I kind of went from like country mouse to city mouse. We moved to Virginia Beach when I was in 5th grade, or before 5th grade, the summer before. And previous to that, I lived in Ohio and lived kind of, it was the suburbs, but it was much more country.
Right.
Right. So I would go, with my friends, we'd go wading in the creek and we'd get frogs. We'd put them in a bucket. We'd catch tadpoles with our bare hands,
Right.
One of my favorite things to do, my friend Kurt and I, we'd go out to the woods, out to the fields, and we'd grab whatever bugs we could find, put them in a jar, poke some holes in the jar, which now I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a PETA list about
PETA's,
somewhere.
right. We're going to be in trouble for that, but that was fun. Nothing freaked me out. I was at 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. Moved to Virginia Beach, and definitely it was not the country.
Yeah, it was the streets.
It was this mean streets of Virginia Beach, as we've talked about. And, none of that was going on.
Yeah.
It was, can I, get net? Can I touch the net? Basketball net, for those of you that don't know.
Yeah.
So my friend Kurt comes to visit about a year later.
Gosh.
And and he's like, let's go get some bugs.
Yeah.
And so I'm going, oh no. So we go out in the park, or whatever near my house, which first of all, he doesn't realize he's risking his life now.
Yeah.
Like he's about to get jumped into a gang.
Right.
But he's looking for some crickets.
Yeah.
Because he's country. He's super country. And he notices that I'm like purposefully not getting the bugs.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I just missed that one. That one. And so I will never, for as long as I live, forget the look on his face and just the disappointment. And he just looked at me and he was like, Scott, he goes, are you afraid of bugs? And I pathetically just said, no, I'm trying to get them. I'm not as fast as I used to be, but I did not want those bugs. They creeped me out. So I feel like he was telling me, quit beating around the bush, grab that locust or grasshopper or whatever it was. And I relate to these guys getting yelled at back in the day.
And tragically, Kurt was killed in a drive-by shooting at a 7-Eleven that very same weekend.
That's right.
Which 7-Eleven, no one knows because there's 9,000 of them in Virginia Beach.
I was thinking about that recently, just the number. And that's what I remember when I moved to Virginia Beach. That was the thing I remembered. The first place we lived. There was a 7-Eleven on every corner. And I was like, what is this magical?
Yeah. You know that there's a gas station by my house that is now a 7-Eleven, but they won't advertise as it.
Oh, what do they call themselves?
They still keep the old gas station name on the outside, but on the inside it's a 7-Eleven.
And that's because you live in a fancy neighborhood.
I do.
So, when in Rome.
We can grab as many bugs as we want.
Yeah, so, anyway, so this poem came out. There's a manuscript of it at Trinity College, Cambridge, and it has been used since then. The other twist to this is when the phrase came out in 1440, it was actually beat about the bush is how it was used. And it was used that way until the 1960s when all of a sudden beat around the bush took over. There's even an infograph here showing that when beat around the bush took over from beat about the bush. Yeah. And even when I saw that, was like, somebody has way too much time on their hands. So that's it. It's a pretty simple one. It's not the most juicy, but it let me talk about my old country roots and frog gigging with my bare hands. So it's not really gigging. But.
And I got through all that without making any jokes. So
that's true.
I have that going for me too.
Well, you almost did.
Yeah.
We should interview someone from PETA.
No.